Munir, thanks for taking time to be with us. It's very interesting if you look at your experience with setting up SC and prior to that even with CIMB and then chairman of Malaysian Airlines and now Muamalat. When you talk about scaling, especially out here in growing a business and scaling a business and growing it not just across Malaysia but really regionally and across Asia, what sort of advice would you impart to folks that are, including myself, right, trying to scale it, across the world? What should we be thinking about, and what should we, how can ASEAN be our playground?
Yeah, I think if Malaysia is your base, okay, we're starting from Malaysia being your base, how I have worked is I see human capital, human resources, people as the most important asset in any organization. That's point number one. Point number two, I try to get the best people, obviously. Right. Point number three, in trying to get the best people, I don't care about race, religion, gender, or age. Yeah. Okay. And point number four, I find out when you mix good quality people together, they create greater value. Therefore, like I was even in New Straits Times, we had a good mix of people as well. It was an enjoyable time and people-based. But CIMB, we had a small group of people and they grew. It was fantastic, SC, the quality of people at the SC.
So really getting the best and helping them and empowering them to.
Yeah, and they are good and they get committed. And SC people, I still have
lots of times,
warmth about them, and so it is good. Now, on the other hand, there's some institutions, right? For example, although I was non-executive, but like Malaysia Airlines, you have a given situation. You're not building something, so the resource base. The work methodology, the work system, almost fixed, and being non-executive also is very difficult to shake it up. Yeah. So you have a uni-racial situation. Right. It doesn't work because there's too much politics that goes on. There's too much politics, too much appeal to politicians, and too much intervention, consequently, when you appeal to politicians. Politicians don't give things for free, Right. they have a return themselves. So you have to ensure then, if you ask me, what's the next thing, is that the political interference is limited, minimized, and you must protect, because they don't take... Sorry.
Yeah. And also at the ASEAN level, right? I mean, because when you go to each of these countries, there's going to be different protection mechanisms. There's different... How do you navigate that? I mean,
I'll give you a recent example. When businesses talk to each other across borders and decide on a deal,
partnership,
it's best when they are talking to each other at the private sector basis. And if you, like I'm a director of Silver Lake, for example, you can talk to anyone, anywhere in ASEAN.
Yep, there's no
another private sector, or even public sector. We've spoken to, maybe I should not talk about details, we've spoken to quite a few companies, banks in ASEAN, countries in ASEAN, about making their government regulatory system intelligent. So it works because technology is such a force, and it can circumvent some.
When you talk about technology, I mean, the question that will inevitably come up is disruption, right? Because it's also disrupting the guys who were so used to doing business the way it was. Banks is one classic example where there's been significant disruption with fintechs and so on. What are your thoughts on that? And how do what advice would you give businesses that are traditional to say?
Okay, the biggest disruptors in the world are the Americans. I'm not talking about Trump, I mean, in terms of technology. It is very, very clear. I saw a study made of the Americas, of Asia Pacific, and of Asia Pacific, Europe. The Americas are the most disruptive. Sure. So they come out with new things to do all the time. We in our region are the least disruptive.
We copy.
We copy or we adapt,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I think we should
learn to flip that.
Learn to flip that. China's doing it in its way.
China's
doing that very well. And they're coming up with original technology which has been commercialized. And they don't share it very much. But I think they're powerful. They're very powerful. I mean, people talk about, I mean, I know about Huawei because at Silver Lake we do have some interaction with the Chinese technology companies. And we take the view, for example, with China, they're quite protectionist in the market. The best way to make money out of China, if you know technology, is not to share it, but to invest in the Chinese companies that are growing.
Right, or partner with them.
You know, and then you sell, and you make the money you sell. So you don't get involved in the management, technology transfers, and all this sort of stuff. And so it does work because, you know, their technology companies are growing. So that's dealing with China. But coming back to your question in terms of disruption and how we adapt, you know. But we have, I mean, robo-advisory is growing. It started in America, of course. And so they're 500 or plus, you know. I don't know about US 1 trillion or plus, you know, under fund management. But we started something here. There are 3 now operating in Malaysia. And it'd be interesting to see the competition, what happens, how it affects banks.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, in terms of their CASA. You know, their CASA will be affected.
Yeah.
You know, and so banks will then have to respond, either joint venture and so on, or come up with a new product themselves. For example, an Islamic bank might want to come up with Sharia compliant robo-advisory services. Right. The problem with Sharia compliant robo-advisory service or investment management products is they tend to give you a lesser return than the conventional.
Correct. Because the margins will be
difficult. I mean, you look at EPF. You have an option of going conventional or not. The annual returns lower. Yes. Now the challenge for, say, Islamic products is to come up with better returns for investment, investment management products.
Okay.
So, again, you can come up with it. Then that's a new thing that you're bringing about that will disrupt, let's say, the UK, Asean asset management companies. The UK is the largest Islamic management companies are in the UK. You can disrupt them, and they will want to join with you. So anything.
So we have that philosophy of being the disruptor instead of being disrupted.
That'd be good if it happens, but then you also have to have the technology.
It's not easy. You need to be brave. You need to take risks. You need to have the capital also, right? I mean, that's another problem we have in Malaysia: the lack of capital to take those risks and to invest in technology.
Okay, capital. I have a relationship with a group in Japan. We're going to launch something in December. Okay. And the whole notion is Japan comes back. Japan comes back notion, and so you don't leave.
Instead of relooking east.
You don't leave the market.
Yep.
To China alone. I mean, it's not anti-Chinese. For us, it's good, to diversify. And America doesn't seem to be too interested now in this country. But so when Japan comes back, what they're looking at are small startups. One of the things that they will be looking at.
I think that would be fantastic when that comes out. Maybe we can talk a bit about that.
I'll give you technology. We share it. Or I'll give you markets. And I'll give you capital, as you're mentioning. Let you grow. But the danger is they might just swallow you up. Yeah. But
in the process, I think, I mean, that's good. It's a sign that we are innovative. That there's
there are some. I gave them a list of 25 Malaysian startups alone. So we got a good database that we've built up.
My last question, and maybe the last 30 seconds or so. Over the years, you've learned so many things. In terms of your failures and successes and all the things combined. I mean, if you could give one piece of advice to business leaders who are thinking about scaling their businesses, who are thinking of growing and getting out of Malaysia, what nugget of wisdom would you impart to them?
Well, in ASEAN, with economies not being totally free, In many ASEAN situations, there's no doubt that you have to relate, engage, political leaders and governmental leaders, but do not allow that to be the driving force. You must always be the driving force. You have to have relationships, you have to have personal relationships, you have to have governmental relationships. But sometimes you get too involved in the government, it actually negates your expansion. But it doesn't mean you spit out the government, but you always manage your, be private sector driven with integrity. Because sometimes you involve governments too much, integrity goes out the window, as you know.
Thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Talking to you.